What is going on, guys? And welcome back to the podcast. So today is a little bit different. It's actually not just myself today. So we've got Chen Yang here as well. And we're going to be doing a joint episode for the Lean 365 podcast and also the Aspire Coaching. Chen Yang, how are we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not too bad. How's your day been so far?
It's been pretty good. Went for a run in the Dubai heat.
How you're managing that?
Yeah, no, it's very uncomfortable. But at the same time, I think it's like really rewarding just like having a full-on sweat for like an hour. And then otherwise just client check-ins, the usual life of an online coach, really. Yeah.
So me and Chen Yang met. When did we meet actually? I think it was it TMP?
Yeah.
So we both were on the same mentorship of basically just like improving our mindset for what we do as online coaches. So yeah, I think it was about 6 months ago, was it we first met?
I think so, yeah. That's crazy. Time has flown by so quickly.
As you can probably tell, she's not from the UK. Whereabouts are you from?
New Zealand, Auckland.
Nice.
Yeah.
How long have you been in Dubai for then?
So I came here in November, which was very much for a holiday for 2 weeks as like a layover to actually head back home. And then I just loved it so much that I haven't left since.
It is definitely like that.
Yeah.
So what we want to touch on today is a few things, just like kind of general discussion, but also going into a bit more the female specific style of fat loss, as a lot of clients at FitLab are females. So I wanted to kind of touch on that and just also give a lot of kind of knowledge in that particular area. I'm also going to kind of like broaden off onto a few other topics as well. So I guess what we'll start with is, what would you say is like the biggest mistake or like problem you see that females have when it comes to getting in shape?
Yeah. I think for a lot of females, it's that extreme approach, right? Like just suddenly slashing calories, over exercising and thinking that that's what's going to build them their dream physique. A lot of it's like doing just heaps and heaps of cardio, right? And then almost like forming this really negative relationship with food, believing that you can't eat certain foods if you want to lose fat and tone up, which obviously we know isn't true, but the majority of people still believe in those fads and those, you know, the things that go around on social media.
Yeah, where do you think that comes from? More social media or just in general?
I think just marketing, right? Like all these big companies, they thrive off feeding these lies to people. And I think, you know, when you don't know any better, when you don't have enough knowledge, of course, you're just going to believe whatever there is out there, right? And you start fearing things.
Yeah, no, I agree. What's like the first thing you would do to almost rectify that? So like if a client came to you and had almost like experienced that in the past, maybe like were living off salads and stuff like that, like what do you normally do just try and find out where they're going wrong to start with?
Yeah. So obviously just kind of looking at their past, right? And like, I guess their mindset towards exercise and food in general, seeing where their relationship with food is currently. And then essentially just giving them a plan where they do have the foods that they've avoided in the past, helping them to see actually like they are making progress now, even though they're having those foods, and slowly reintroducing them back in. I think it's just being able to, for them to prove to themselves that, oh, okay, I can actually have these carbs and I'm still making progress.
Yeah, for sure. Why do you think women get like quite emotional around like food and stuff? I feel like it is more of a, I don't know, like they sort of turn to food when stuff goes wrong. I know a lot of clients will say to me that like they've had a really tough week at work, and it seems to be more females that I feel like this happens to. Like I feel like guys, maybe they have like different coping mechanisms when stuff goes wrong, but with women it's very like emotional eating and stuff. I feel like it's a bit of a female thing. Do you agree?
I would definitely say, yeah, I think females probably struggle with it a little bit more than males. One being, I think in general, females are just more emotional. Like, you know, small things will trigger us a lot more than guys, for example.
Yeah.
And then I guess with those emotions and then even hormones, our menstrual cycle, it then leads us to having more cravings. I think another thing is like in general with food, it's like that dopamine hit, right? Like you're stressed out, you're not feeling great by yourself. As soon as you have a hit of sugar, it's that quick instant fix. So I would say it's that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. What about in terms of training then? So I think that's definitely an area that I know a lot of women struggle with in terms of weights, cardio, weights making you bulky. What's the kind of like experience you've had with that?
Yeah.
So you know that it's not the case, right? We should be lifting weights.
Yeah. Again, I think it's because many females lack proper knowledge around training, right? So they do believe that, oh, if I touch the weights, I'm going to look like the guys at the gym.
Yeah, for sure.
The thing is though, like most females, they want to tone up, right?
Yeah.
That's what they always tell like everyone. I just want to tone up.
It's an interesting word that. What's your approach in it? I mean, it's essentially fat loss, right? It's like body recomposition in a way that sounds sexier.
Yeah, well, it's essentially obviously having enough muscle to
Yeah,
begin
for
with,
sure.
right? Or else you end up being skinny fat and then obviously losing that body fat. I think what a lot of females don't realize is that if they were just to lose body fat and they had no muscle, they still wouldn't get that
this is
toned
it.
look. And
I think
that's why
there's
it's
a
so
difference
hard.
between weight loss and fat loss, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like, people just think it's about like seeing the scales come down as quick as possible. It's interesting word skinny fat. I use it quite a lot as well.
Yeah.
I know you had that like YouTube episode. What is skinny fat to you? Like just someone who's got no muscle and has also just got too much body fat.
Yeah, so you know what, like that's exactly how I would have defined myself growing up, and
Yeah,
that's something I really struggled with, especially I think being Asian, like we're quite petite, but we don't essentially carry that much muscle mass with us. So I would say it's like you feel, you know, you look skinny when you're in clothes,
Yes.
but when you're naked, you kind of just look a bit pudgy and
yeah.
soft. Yeah.
It's kind of like I guess the worst case scenario, but it's where a lot of people do start.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I always think that like, because this is a really common kind of like go into more guys again, but this is really common, not a lot of guys positions starting. So normally they try and do both at the same time. So they think they need to obviously lose body fat and they'll try and build muscle. And I think we both know that's quite a slow process. Like if you're constantly waking up and feeling a little bit different, one day you want to cut, one day you want to bulk. So I always suggest that they lose the body fat first. I'm sure it's pretty much the same with girls, right? We want to try and get as lean as possible. I think it's a difference in terms of how lean if you're a guy or you're a girl, but the goal should still be to get lean. And then I think from there, you can almost like build that basis of, right, now I can grow, now I can sort of see the areas that I want to improve the most. And I suppose your body's a lot more responsive when you're leaner as well. And then you can kind of go into that growth phase. And I think like females especially are very scared when it comes to like bulking, aren't they? They get gaining and stuff like that when I know calories need to be high. Like how high do your calories go when you're in a gaining phase?
So the highest calories that I got up to was like 3,800, but that was obviously bodybuilding. So very extreme and, you know, just not realistic for a lifestyle goal, I would say.
That's crazy. Were you gaining weight on that?
I was, but very slowly because again, like you have to remember I was coming off from stage lean, right? So I was down to 47 kgs. I'm 58 right now. Yeah, so I had absolutely no body fat. So we slowly reversed it and got myself up there. Obviously, I still gained quite a bit of weight. But no, like it was enjoyable, but also just in hindsight.
What time frame is that over, like to get to that amount?
Sorry?
What time frame did you go from low calories up to that?
I think it was like just like 4 or 5 months.
I see. That's a lot of food for a girl to be on.
Yeah, I was having like, you know those salted caramel rice cakes from M&S? They're so good from the UK. Oh my God, they taste like crack. I was having a whole pack every day as dessert. Plus like all the other stuff. I was having like bowls of cream of rice, everything.
How would you feel like at that point though, like when you got to that many calories? Like, did you still have good energy or did you start to feel a little bit crap? Because I know like when I think the most I push my calories is probably like 4.5K, but I know when I'm at that, like I do feel a little bit sluggish and I don't know, I don't feel as maybe a little bit more bloated as well from the food intake. It's a little bit more tough, but I know like for some people it's a position you've got to get to if you want to build muscle. Yeah. Like a substantial amount of muscle.
I think bloating wise, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also why I kind of just like banked on my calories before bed because I was like, okay, if I'm going to be bloated, I'm going to be bloated before bed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And what was the like goal with bodybuilding? Because you did that for quite a long time, right?
Yeah, so when I first started, it was very much just like, I just want to push myself out of my comfort zone. I think it's a great kind of challenge to have.
Yeah.
And I love discomfort. Like, I'm a big
How many
believer.
competitions did you do?
Sorry?
How many competitions did you do?
I did 5 shows, but 2 years. Yeah.
Nice. Would you go back to that now or you pretty much finished your bodybuilding days?
Yeah, I wouldn't go back at all.
It's difficult. Like, how did you almost like feel about yourself during that period of time? Like what was your like relationship like with, I suppose not just with food, but like in general? Because I mean, I can only base it off my experience, but I definitely felt like I had a little bit of body dysmorphia. Like I didn't feel great about myself. And like, I'd even look at myself and think I wasn't lean and I was very lean if I look back to myself. I think it's a very like emotional journey. Yeah. And I'm glad I competed, but I know that it's not something that I would probably do again because I just feel like it doesn't align with
who you are now.
Exactly. Yeah, I think so. I just think it, like I went through a really difficult period afterwards with food, like, and I've never had that, like in terms of binging and like restricting and like, it's something I've not experienced before. It's something that I spoke when I joined TMP about, but I think it's a difficult like position to get to, but I know a lot of people the same, like who have done competitions and the first one is always the worst one. I've got a couple of friends and it's people that I follow on Instagram and like, you know, they look amazing. You're like, wow, like this guy's looks incredible. And then like a few weeks later, their face is like blown up and you're like, holy shit. Like and it's like exactly what happened to me as well. Yeah. I literally remember like PTing and one of my clients at the time, I was literally like in an absolute state with eating so many carbs, and my clients was like, your face looks really like fat. And I was just like,
ouch.
yeah, it was like this thrill, like shock. I was like, what's happening? I think for a long time I was like in this position of like really struggling to almost pull myself out of it. I was doing like boxes of cereals a night, and like, it's crazy.
It's a cereal, isn't it?
I couldn't like see things in the right way. I'd go to like a supermarket and then look at a dessert for like 4 people. I'd be like, I'd literally be thinking, I'm gonna eat that myself.
Yeah. The exact same.
Yeah.
I think especially the first show, right? Because I guess your body and your mind's never been to a place of such restriction for such a long time. So obviously I think even just like when you look at like caveman days, right? It's like, it's a survival mechanism to be like, okay, cool. Like I need to fuel my body again and just eat literally whatever. I remember after my first show, I sent voice notes to my coach at like midnight crying. And like, I was like, I'm so embarrassed by these voice notes. But basically I had bought all these like post-show cookies. I froze them because I was like, I'm going to be smart and freeze them so I don't eat all of them. I went through 6 of them in one night with a tub of Ben & Jerry's. I then bought a massive like 12-inch pizza for myself.
That's crazy.
Went through, you know, Rice Krispie bars, like squares.
Yeah,
oh my
know,
God, they were
they're like a real bodybuilding food, aren't they?
Yeah, but they were my biggest weakness. So I still vividly remember like just feeling so out of control that night. After all those cookies, I was like sick, but I was like, I need to continue eating. And my flatmate's not home either. So like, this is me time with food. I remember grabbing the squares bars and literally dipping them into like my massive 1-liter tub of peanut butter, then to jam, and then put a dark chocolate slab on top of it and was just eating through my whole kitchen. Yeah.
It's like almost
out of body experience.
I think so. That's the thing. It's definitely not healthy, right? Like and this isn't to slate it, but like I think that's a genuine problem a lot of people have, especially at the start when it comes to such an extreme goal like that. I think it's just like when you come off the back of a competition. I know for me as well, like when you're just working towards something for like solidly for 16 weeks, it's almost like your life for 16 weeks. Like you literally are like all in, and then all of a sudden like it's done. And I mean, I did okay, but I didn't get the result I wanted. And again, I was just on this low afterwards of like not really knowing where to turn. And then I had like a few other things going on in my life as well, which made it tough. But it just like, it sent me to this like really dark place. And I mean, for me as a coach now, it's almost a good thing because it helps me like, you know, manage it in a way in which I can obviously like relate back to clients. But I think that's the problem now, because I think bodybuilding is rising a lot, and I think it's in a good way. A lot of people are wanting to do it more, but I also think there is a real dark side to it that a lot of people don't talk about in terms of like taking performance enhancing drugs and relationships with food and stuff that like no one talks about, but is probably happening to a lot of people, especially at the start of their career. So I think you've got to be a little bit careful, which is why I've decided, like you, I think, to switch to more of a like lifestyle approach.
Yeah. What was the body dysmorphia like for you?
I don't know, like I didn't feel like really, you know, unconfident in myself or anything like that. But I suppose I just like kind of wanted to be in a certain position, which I didn't feel like I was in. And even though like people look at me and like, oh, you look really lean and stuff, I didn't feel lean. And like, it was just that element of it. And I think, like, and then obviously getting on stage as well, I was nerve-wracking and stuff like that. And it wasn't that bad. I think the worst body dysmorphia was after. Like the actual show itself, like leading up to it, I was in a fairly good place most of the time because I was really focused on the goal. I was excited, and you just get a lot of like, I suppose like validation and stuff on Instagram and stuff, don't you? And you almost live off that. Yeah, you're like, oh wow, like, you know, this is it. Then after that's when I definitely feel like I did get into more body dysmorphia and stuff in terms of just like, and I never say I was out of shape. Like, you know, I don't want people to pity on me thinking you were still in shape, because people would look at me and think you still had abs, that you still, but to me, like with the amount of weight I gained, which was like maybe like a stone in 2 weeks or something like that.
What's a stone in kgs?
So like 7 kgs probably in about 2 weeks. Yeah. So I went from like, I think my stage weight was about 90 kilos, maybe just under 90 kilos, which is really heavy for a guy on stage. I was in fitness model as well. So I was way too big for that category, which I now realize. But I think I went up to like 97, 98 kilos. Wow, yeah. And like for me, that just doesn't look right. Like it doesn't look good at all. But I still kind of was holding on to some form of ab definition there. So I wasn't out of shape, but I think it was just the fact that my relationship with food was very poor. It had broken down. And it probably took me a good time. I don't know how long it was in total, maybe like a good 6 months to fully come out of it and stuff like that. It probably like was when we went into lockdown at the start of 2020 was when I fully sort of like got back into normal again. And then kind of just, this is when I started online coaching. So it kind of like all led after that. But difficult experience for sure.
How did you get out of it? Because I know that for a lot of clients, I don't know about you, but like all my female clients have struggled with food, and it's a very hard place to get out of.
I can't remember like exactly how. I think it was just a period of time. Like I definitely remember it was for a long time. I even remember like it was, you know, I'd even go like to my dad's house or like to my mum's house. We'd have like a nice meal, and like I'd have the meal afterwards, and I would just be sat there like waiting for the next. Like I wouldn't be able to sit down and enjoy time with family and actually be present in the moment because I was so focused on food, and like, I would never get full. I suppose like when I came out of it, I don't know, but I reckon it was a good 6 months to maybe like the start of 2020. I think it just slowly like spiraled out a little bit. And then at 2020, I went back to live with my mum at that point anyway because of COVID. And I think like the change in environment helped as well, because before I was living by myself, which again isn't always is quite a difficult place, I suppose, if you're not like mentally 100% there. So being around family helped. And I think it was like maybe like 6 months. And then I think with the online coaching and the way that my business then kind of took off quite a lot, my focus went into that. And I think by the time I got to the end of the year, everything changed. I was pretty much back to a good position after that, but it took a long time, like a really, really long time. And I think, in some ways, maybe COVID helped to kind of bring myself back to normal again from that perspective. And I think now I probably won't do bodybuilding again for that particular reason. This is just one competition as well, like, you know, one amateur competition. I'm no pro at all, but I suppose my experience is there, and that's some people probably don't get that, and they maybe do like 1 or 2 competitions and it's the best thing ever, and they've got someone who's, you know, can control their like diet after and stuff and get them to a good place. But I suppose everyone's different. So now I suppose like you, like I like to be more well-rounded in my fitness. So I don't want to just be, you know, the guy who looks like he's in great shape. I want to be able to perform well and, you know, just generally be fit overall, which I think bodybuilding isn't, if I'm honest. Like we can say that, right? Like it's really not, people kind of put it on a podium to the peak of fitness, right? But it's not, like, if we're honest.
It's really not. You feel like utter crap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're either like getting shredded and feeling like you're not shredded and it's like a lot of restriction, or you're like we've just spoken about pushing calories up super high. So and that lifestyle, some people, they absolutely love it and they thrive off it, and like fair play to them, and I actually respect them, because I think it's a I couldn't live that lifestyle anymore. I know I couldn't, just because of like the temptation of, you know, like living in Dubai and stuff as well, and like the amount we've got on offer here. But I like massively respect the people that do it, because it's a sacrifice, isn't it? Like it's huge, it's a real lifestyle. I wouldn't even say it's a sport, it's a natural lifestyle, right? Like it's completely, for them, it's normal. But yeah, so now I suppose we've changed it a little bit. But you've just done a marathon, right? So like, what was that like? I mean, I'm assuming not easy.
Honestly, it's funny because I never thought I was a runner. Again, like, you know, I was in this fixed mindset where I was like, oh, I just bodybuild, like this is who I am. Never really did much cardio.
How did that change? Like, because you've done like 5 contests or whatever, and I only did 1. So what was the switch from not wanting to compete anymore?
Yeah. So when I was in London, I think, you know, my whole circle was just bodybuilders. And you know, when they say like your circle's so important, like
100%.
that's all I knew. Like it didn't even cross my mind that my lifestyle was actually like very different from Gen Pop or like someone who doesn't bodybuild.
Yeah.
So I became so accustomed to being like, okay, the only things that matter to me are my business, my training, and my macros. I get 1 off-plan meal each week. That is it. I track all my sleep, my steps, everything, the T. That just became the norm. Like I didn't even think twice about it. And then when I resigned my corporate job to take like coaching full time, I obviously had to go back to New Zealand. So then I got kind of reintroduced to like my old friendship groups, and like bodybuilding is so small in New Zealand in itself anyways.
Yeah.
Obviously I saw my parents again.
It's not big there, right?
It's not. Yeah. It's so small. There's like maybe like 2 shows per year, and the quality is like very low.
Yeah.
Then I kind of went back to, I guess, like normal life. And I was just like, there was just so much resistance because it was so hard to be like, oh, I want to be present with my family and have these like family meals because they haven't seen me in years. But yet here I am trying to like weigh out the foods, and I'm like freaking out because with Asian food as well, it's like you can't really weigh it out. Like it's just family made meals are not for tracking. And then I think it just like, I kind of...
How'd you go about that? That's a little side tangent, but interestingly, like what's your approach when it comes to like foods like that you're difficult to track and stuff? Because I've got clients that are in a similar position.
So with our clients, we tell them to take photos of like what their family meals look like.
That's a good idea.
Because I'm a big believer that fitness needs to fit into your life.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And, you know, those experiences, those memories are really important. So then we kind of see, you know, from a weekly, monthly basis, what their meals typically look like.
I get you.
And then it's basically like portion control.
Control portions, yeah. No, we use a similar approach, to be fair, which makes sense because you're going to struggle to track that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And go back to what you're saying, so.
So went back home, like my friends all wanted to see me, and I was just like, this is just stressful because I'm trying to plan out like weeks in advance when I can see anyone. And then I remember also just struggling with my period as well. I had lost it for 3 years since like bodybuilding.
That's super common, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost it before bodybuilding.
That's just not healthy, like for that to happen. And
Yeah.
I haven't coached anyone to bodybuild, but I've had clients that that's happened to, or that's happened to in the past.
Yeah.
Which is a difficult position to be in.
Yeah. So I had already lost at uni because I was over exercising and eating and just had no idea what I was doing. And then obviously when I started bodybuilding, it just didn't help.
Yeah.
So it was very much like, I think like a turning point in my life where I was like, okay, what do I actually value in life? Like, is it to become like a pro bodybuilder or to continue this lifestyle? Or do I actually want more experiences, deeper connections with people, which I believe is built through social interactions and actually eating together and being 100%. Able to say yes to more things, right? And do I value actually having like a family in the future, which means I need my menstrual cycle back?
Oh, 100%.
So it's like just actually getting out of that circle and just being like, wake up, Chin Yang, like what are your true values? Kind of aligning all of that made me realize, okay, I actually can't continue bodybuilding because I'm not actually going to gain much more out of it. I don't regret it at all because I built so much discipline, so much willpower. Like mentally, I was like, wow, I can do really hard things. But yeah, it just got to a point where I was like, I'm not going to gain much out of it anymore.
I'm with you. And then when did you do your first like endurance event?
So this is when I then signed up with a new coach because I've always believed in like having a mentor or coach by your side just to push you. So signed up with Joe and I was like, look, this is where I am right now. I've kind of lost my identity. Like, you know, bodybuilding was my identity for 2.5 years and I just feel really lost. Like I don't know what to do with myself. Even with eating, I was so confused. I was like, can I just like eat normally again?
It's difficult, yeah.
I'm like, whoa, I can do that. You know? So he helped me through that. And then I was like, you know what? I really miss just having some sort of personal goal that's outside my business, like something just for myself. And I had gone for a run randomly one weekend and I was like, you know what? I went for like a 10-minute run. It felt okay.
Yeah.
It was a bit hard, but I feel like if we set a goal, because I love goals and I love reaching them, I will strive towards this.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So then we set like a 5K goal and then it kind of went from 5K to me being like, just do a half marathon, and then it went to half marathon to marathon.
You just cracked out a full marathon, didn't you, by yourself?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Why not?
It's really impressive.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. Like, I think having performance goals is important. I do think that I think to begin with for most people, like I'm assuming it's probably the same with your clients, but you initially want to get them to a certain position, maybe weight wise. So even though the scales aren't everything, I do think that like having a strict goal of, right, we're going to get you to this position, and whether that's not exactly the weight that's set out, but getting them in good shape. After that, I think if you don't have a performance goal, you can start to not know what's next, and then you can start to slip back to old ways, right? If you don't have a goal of like, right, I'm gonna, you know, even just like improve my bench press. Don't do bench press, but we'll go into that maybe later on. But maybe like to improve like a deadlift or something like that. Like that's another way to have like a focus in the gym. But if we're thinking about performance from obviously like what we've done as well, like marathons, even just improving your 5K, it just gives you such like more of a focus. You don't get attached to scale weight, do you? And like your nutrition and stuff is easier to manage based off that. I know that like since having that for me, it's made a massive difference. I still would love to do a marathon. I still plan to do one, but maybe in like a few months time.
Yeah. I think, you know what, like those performance-based goals also help you improve your relationship with food because suddenly you see food as, okay, this is actually fuel. I need this to be able to run faster, to be able to lift more. I need this to then recover from my sessions. It's no longer seeing exercise and food as just calories in versus calories out, body weight going up or body weight going down, which again, I think really allows people to fully appreciate what like a fitness journey should be about. Like look your best, but also feel your best and perform your best.
Yeah, because you come away from just using the scales all the time. I think that's something that definitely women get very attached to as well in terms of scale weight and like almost like being scared to see the scales go up and like thinking that it needs to always be going down and stuff. I know there's a lot of women that, but like you've obviously spoken about previously in terms of like putting your calories that high, like would you recommend that most females go on high food to get their strength up and their calories high?
You certainly don't need that much food.
No, that's like an extremity, right?
Yeah. I think, you know, with bodybuilding, they like to really push it to the extremes, right? But I don't think it's actually necessary. But it's also individual based, right? Like I've always been someone who can stomach quite a lot of food and my body's just kind of takes it. Like if my weight had skyrocketed, my coach no way would have put me up on that food. But because my weight wasn't really doing much, we kind of had to push it.
I get you. What's like, if I know it's hard to say unless you have a specific person in front of you, but like what sort of calories do you put a lot of girls on that are looking to build muscle?
Yeah, so on average, most of our clients do work their way up to like 2,500.
Yeah. And
bear in mind, they're like small, like me and petite, most Asians as well. But that's through a very kind of gradual reverse. Like we do take a very long time to do that. And then, But
that's such a good place to be, isn't it? Because like when you get to that position, like it's very difficult to then gain the weight back or become out of shape again.
Yeah.
Because people think that a lot of people think that the diet is just the only thing. Like when they've lost the weight, it's like you can just go back to your old ways. Like whereas what we do is specifically with guys, we try and get them up to 3,000 calories per day. Like that's our goal, because when they get to that position and they've still got abs, the ability for them to undo that would be pretty hard. Like they'd have to not train for literally weeks on end. They'd have to eat so much crap, drink those. It'd be really difficult. Whereas like if they've just finished a diet and a guy's got abs and he's maybe had to go down to like 1,800 calories or something like that, like his body wants to gain the weight back. Like it's so receptive to weight gain. Like body set point is out completely. So that's a really difficult position to be in. So like that's why for us, like we have phases to get clients to a position as to where like they can essentially maintain their progress. That's not just when they've got lost loads of weight, like you know, a 12-week or 8-week program or something like that, which can be a little bit crazy.
I think that's also the biggest sort of misconception, right? For a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm just trying to lose weight, but they don't really realize that part of that is also keeping it off. Like, I don't think, you know, the hard part about a fitness journey isn't really the weight loss or the fat loss. Like, yes, that's tough, but the hardest part is actually keeping it off, because most people have lost body fat before, right? They've been able to.
And to do it, it's like whether you're doing it in the right or the wrong way, an ethical or non-ethical way, like you can lose the weight, right? You could just restrict your calories, and people if the reason to get in shape is big enough, like they have a wedding or they're going to Ibiza and they want to be in shape, like people will do anything to get there, whether that is just like low carb. But the harder the approach or the extreme it is, the more likely the weight's going to come back on. And the statistics are just so bad. Like it is literally 95% of people will gain the weight back after, I think it's within like 1 to 3 years or something like that, which is crazy.
That's crazy.
So the statistics are like completely against people, like to actually sustain weight loss, which is obviously where coaching comes into play, because people just don't know what to do.
It's a lifestyle change, right? Like you need to change your lifestyle and your habits from a day-to-day basis, or else 100%. You're not going to keep it off.
It's like a complete switch in your identity, like your behavior, right?
Yeah.
Because if you still think like the person that was smashing 10 pints at the weekend and having a vindaloo, like you just, you know, you're not going to sustain it. You'll go back to that and your body's going to gain the weight back. And I think that this is why sometimes like the word diet isn't great, because people just assume that what they're doing is just a part-time thing, and then they can go back to what they were doing before afterwards.
Yeah, I think it's also like a lot of inner work, right? Like it's like actually valuing yourself more now, because I think you know, the more self-respect you have, and the more that you value yourself, the more you're going to actually take care of your body, right? Like a big change for me when I was struggling with food was like actually changing my internal thoughts to be like, every time I like felt like I wanted to binge or just say like F it, I was like, okay, no, Chingyang, like you need to value yourself more. Treat your body like a temple. Your body is not a trash can. And just those few split seconds of saying that really changes the game, because you're like, oh, okay, crap. No, calm down.
You need to. It's difficult. How do you what's the easiest way for someone to almost like implement that like mindset shift? Just
affirmations every day. Just tell yourself, like, you know, like fake it till you make it. Like even if you don't believe that you're, you know, you are worth anything, and maybe you have such lack of self-belief that, you know, you look in the mirror and you hate yourself, just start telling yourself that you are worth more, that you deserve better for yourself. I deserve to treat myself better. I deserve to treat myself better. Over time, you're going to start believing that. That's great. And do your clients do that? Do you get your clients to do that? Yes. So we do a lot of mindset stuff, because I think— Do you have a mindset, like someone to coach specifically for that, or do you do it yourself? Mainly me. I love that kind of stuff. Like I think that's what drives me the most. The nutrition, the exercise, that's cool. That's like foundational. It's pretty much, it's the mindset. It's I'm so like, important. It's the juicy stuff. I think that's what like creates long-term change. It's difficult to get someone that's been out of shape their whole life to actually like change their mindset and believe they're a different person. I think that's what I've seen to be a difficult position. This is why this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Like people need to actually invest in a proper journey rather than just thinking they're going to be where they want to be in like 8 weeks. That's also why like those 12-week programs can maybe get you losing X amount of body fat, but then you gain it back, right? Because those programs only give you some sort of like calorie deficit, which is obvious. Exactly. You know, but it doesn't change your mindset around yourself. No. What do you think like a time frame towards that is? Like, do you think like to take someone through a full journey, like how long would you specifically need with someone? Honestly, at least a year, I would say. What is your program around a year, or is it less than that? The minimum is 3 months, but that's just because I know that for at least a lot of females, commitment's scary. For sure. People are scared to commit. I guess like when they're bought into it, then they'll see the most stay for a year. And I think, you know, those who don't, because perhaps they don't recognize the value of staying on after they've lost the body fat, typically are the ones who then kind of see themselves going backwards again, which is a shame. But I think at least a year to really make sure that you know how to maintain, you go out, have holidays, have a really great lifestyle while still having a coach to kind of help you through that. So then you're in a place where you're like, okay, actually, no, like I know that I'm in a good place now and I don't need someone to hold me accountable because I can hold myself
Hold
accountable.
yourself accountable, yeah. What's like the obsession with women when it comes to like classes and stuff like that, and like this like, huge like overemphasis on cardio, because that I believe to be a big problem that females have. Loads of cardio classes, this just like hit around the living room. Is that something that your clients have done as well?
I think a lot of females have done that, right, as like a starting point to their fitness journey. One being,
Where's that come from? Comfort, do you think? Like,
I think one being a low barrier towards fitness, right? Because it's easier to go in a class with your friends, right? You don't, like if you don't know what to do, you just follow someone at a class, and obviously they're fun, it's got great music. So I think it's a great way to introduce yourself into fitness. And then because they don't realize, I guess, the importance of resistance training, or maybe the gym's a bit too intimidating, they don't think it's for them. But then obviously the goals that they want kind of require them to train properly.
How do you like approach that when you get females that haven't ever been in a gym environment before? Like what's your like process to getting them being uncomfortable? Do you like slowly bring them into it, or?
Yeah. I guess like it depends on the individual, right?
Yeah.
Like if they're super uncomfortable, it's about maybe just starting at home, like grabbing some dumbbells and just actually, you know, building some knowledge around resistance training, getting them to actually be more like to understand their bodies better as well. Cause you know, some of the movements, if you've never done it before, it's awkward. You're like, what am I doing with my body?
Yeah.
So getting them to practice those movements, once they feel a bit more confident, once they feel like, oh, I'm getting stronger, I think just that like mental switch enables them to be like, oh, I can go to the gym, and like it's still going to be intimidating, but I now know that I can move in this way and I know I'm doing things correctly. So just easing their way in. Yeah,
they build confidence. Like I find it's something that happens quite fast. Like when they get into training and like start seeing progression. Like I had one of my female clients message me today saying like she had like the best gym session and, you know, complete beginner like a few weeks ago. So I feel like it's just the initial couple of weeks, which is like discomfort, but like we know that we have to break through that to actually get to a good position. Yeah. Like maybe like being unfamiliar with some movements and things like that, which I get, like it can be scary. Like especially with gyms being very like male dominated as well. When you're going into a weights area and stuff, it's not as easy
big
as
guys.
Exactly.
Grunting.
Yeah. I can imagine. So yeah, it must be pretty scary, but like to get to where women want to get to in terms of the physique they want, like it's literally, it's just a non-negotiable. Like from cardio alone, it just is simply not going to get them to that position at all. And it just goes back to what we were saying at the start in terms of like that, like skinny fat, like weight loss versus fat loss. Like you're just going to end up losing lots of weight and muscle. Probably damage yourself more in the future. Like cardio is essentially going to get you to lose weight faster, but in terms of actual long-term weight loss.
Even from like looking at your metabolism, like you're not going to be able to eat very much if you have like no muscle mass.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's almost like a real short-term play. And I mean, cardio is something that it's still like a good tool, right? But it's not something that we want to be like playing on too much.
Yeah.
How do you like approach your like cardio and weights with the clients that you coach? Like what would be the emphasis? Do you still get them to do a bit of both, or like fully like into the weight side of things?
Priorities resistance training. And then obviously if it's fat loss, if their goal is fat loss, then that's going to mainly come from nutrition. Obviously cardio helps in terms of bringing you into a further deficit when you need it. But we don't really want to go straight to heaps of cardio just because not sustainable. It impacts your recovery. So yeah, really focusing on just getting stronger.
Oh, 100%. What about your training? How's like that split for you, like in terms of cardio and weights? Because obviously you're doing
right now, it's crazy.
So
obviously I'm doing like a mini cut before Bali, right? So right now it's 4 days at the gym in terms of like strength training. And then it's 2 runs. So that's more for like the marathon next year that I want to train towards. And then I'm doing 6 times 30 minutes of less cardio just from a fat loss perspective.
That's a lot, yeah.
But bear in mind, I did tell my coach, I was like, look, I really enjoy food. I actually don't want to change food. I want to see if I can just like move more and see what happens. So I'm still eating like 1,900 calories. And then on my long run days, I eat 1,900 and then all the calories I burnt back. So, you know, I could be doing less. Yes, I could be doing less cardio, but I enjoy moving. So I was like, I'd rather move more and eat more.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. When's the next goal of a marathon? Have you not got one planned yet?
Probably February next year. Yeah.
Have you applied for the London Marathon?
I have. I'm just waiting for it. I'm just waiting to hear back.
So that could be the next one.
Could be, yeah.
Interesting. What's your training going to be like over the next few months? Are you going to carry on with the running, or are you going to pull it back a little bit?
When I'm in Bali for like a month, it probably will have to come back a little bit. I'll see how I get on, and then once I'm back in New Zealand, then back in Dubai, it's going to be full on. Yeah.
What, back to lots of running?
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah,
Well,
that is something-
hybrid, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely need to get back into the running. Like
Yeah.
I think a marathon is definitely the next goal.
Yeah.
2 halves this year I've done now, which went well, but two of them both with a torn pec. So
Yeah.
I
How's
take
that
as an
going? How is that
achievement.
going?
It's getting better. Like it's
Yeah.
still the early stages. I mean, the op was about 8 weeks ago now, so
Yeah.
I'm still not anywhere close to the back to full training, but it's a lot of improvements. Like the first 6 weeks was very tough. Like that was very sedentary lifestyle. Like I could hardly even move because they took tendon out of my hamstring. So for me, like I didn't expect to have obviously a leg trauma as well. So that was difficult. But yeah, I mean now it's just like trying to. I think in the next couple of weeks we should get back to some sort of like upper body training. It'll be light, and then I mean I'll have to spend like probably a good 6 weeks gaining the muscle back I've lost, maybe 8 weeks. I wouldn't say I've like noticeably lost a lot. I think this is the thing. Like people think that, you know, like clients will have like a week at the gym because they've got ill and they're like, oh my God, I've ruined all my progress. Like what can I do? It's like, you'll be fine. Like I've not trained for 7 weeks, and whilst maybe I look a little bit different, it's not noticeable. Like people would still look at me and be like, he's in shape. Yeah. So it's definitely more of a mental battle. I think that like exercise in general like is a huge like fuel when it comes to like energy and like productivity and stuff like that. So like not having that for me was difficult because that was literally like my livelihood. So not training and stuff was hard, but I think any injuries and setbacks and stuff, like they do come back and make you stronger, even though like I'm struggled at points to see, even though people were telling me that I was like trying to like see the light side of it, but it's definitely is one of those things. Have you ever had a bad injury, or is this like you touch words like pretty good at the moment from an injury perspective?
The only injuries I've had have been just like tweaks in my back from like deadlifting or like squatting too much. So
It's nothing like massively serious.
no. But I would say like even that, like, you know, after my marathon when I couldn't really train legs, that impacted my mental health so much. And I didn't realize at the point, but I was like, why am I struggling so much to like think clearly? Why am I feeling just so depressed and just like anxious?
Yeah.
Especially when you have like such a big workload and maybe you run your own business, like that training time is for you just to like decompress.
Yeah, 100%.
So when you don't have that, you're like, oh.
I felt like almost at times like a bit of a fraud to my clients as well, because I was like telling them they need to be training and like all this. I mean, my nutrition was very good. I never let that slip, but definitely without the exercise, it was difficult to be like telling clients to come and do it. Cause I find it like, I'm massively against seeing like trainers and stuff that don't practice what they preach and aren't in shape and stuff, and they're telling their clients to do that. So that was a difficult thing as well. But yeah, I definitely find like it does really like cement your day in terms of like a structured perspective and stuff as well. Just like losing that is difficult. And this is why I always say to clients and stuff, or people that maybe aren't training at the moment, like they think that, you know, exercise and stuff like that is going to take from their day and it's going to, you know, be this like demanding process, when actually it's going to provide you with more value. It's going to provide you with more energy, and like you're just going to feel way better about yourself. And if you're not doing that, then you're probably leaving like productivity and stuff on the table from what you could actually be achieving. I think there's definitely like a right and a wrong way. Like you don't need to be doing like 2 hours of training every single day in the gym. Like that's not realistic for a lot of people, but to be in the gym 3 days per week for say like an hour, like for someone that's like a really busy person, like that's, I think, realistic, but also is going to provide them with a lot of value both in and outside of the gym.
Even if it's like just like 25 minutes at home.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
Any sort of movement is going to help you, right?
Yeah. What do you have clients to do train at home? What it kind of depends on?
A lot of mothers do, just because they have children to look after. They're also working full time, which for me, I'm like, wow, that is just incredible. So they'll just do like workouts from home just because it saves them so much time and they can kind of take care of their children whilst they're training.
What's like the minimum like equipment that you would say that a woman would need to train from home? Because I have clients that sometimes that are in that position as well. And I think, again, it's, I suppose with a guy, I think there's more of a reason for them to be in the gym. Again, it's goal dependent, but I think for a lot of women, they can probably get away from training with home. I think with specifics in place, like what's like the minimum that someone would need to start a training program?
Honestly, I think, look, like if we're going to be realistic, if you really do want to build muscle, then you need weights, right? So maybe just a pair of dumbbells. But from a health perspective, from improving just your lifestyle and your mental well-being as well, literally your body's enough, right? If you literally have nothing, make do and just use your body. Like with an effective program, you can still obviously get in better shape by doing something. Like doing anything is better than nothing, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And what's like the biggest like cardio perspective you would get women to do if they were training from home? Would you get them to kind of like running, or like depending on what they're doing?
Steps and running,
Steps is so underrated, isn't it?
Yeah. The amount of people who struggle to get in like even 5K steps, like a lot of people join us and they're getting like 2K each day.
I don't get how people are doing that. Yeah.
But it's like, no wonder your energy's so depleted. No wonder you're so tired all the time because you're barely moving your body, right?
Yeah. Crazy. How many steps are you doing per day at the moment?
At least 10K, averaging 15 to 16K.
But on your long run days, a lot more.
Yeah.
It's just like too hot at the moment, isn't it, in Dubai with the...
Living on the treadmill.
Too much. I don't know how you're managing the running at the moment.
Yeah. Do you know, I've realized it's so painful having sunscreen and sweat in your eyes.
I bet.
Every weekend I'm like, I'm being blinded right now.
What do you take with you when you run? Like, do you take a lot of water?
I now do. When
Not
I was
before.
training for my marathon, I wasn't.
That's crazy.
You live and you learn.
Yeah. A marathon in Dubai is impressive. What was the temperature when you ran it that day?
I think it was, it got up to 32, which back then I was like, wow, this is so hot. And now I'm like, 32 is fine. Because it's obviously changed so much now.
It's weird, isn't it? Like how much you adapt.
Yeah, your perspective changes. You're like, oh, it's so nice and cool. It's 31 degrees.
So where were you before Dubai then? The UK or in New Zealand?
London for 4 years and then New Zealand
so you're
for
used
half
to
a
UK
year.
weather then, pretty much.
Yeah, and then New Zealand for half the year, Bali and then Dubai.
And what's like the weather like in New Zealand on average?
So nice. It's just like a nice kind of comfortable. So in the summer in Auckland, it gets up to like maybe 28 degrees, average maybe 25. Winter, it's like 13, 12. It's really nice.
Yeah, that's somewhere that I want to go, but it's quite a long way from here, right?
Yeah. I think it's like 30 hours of traveling.
Really?
Or maybe less. No, that was the UK. So maybe like 24, 23. I don't know. Yeah.
How long do you think you'll be in Dubai for now?
Until I want to leave, which I don't see being in the next 5 years. Like I do want to be here for a while.
Do you think just because you enjoy the lifestyle or just because it's like good from a business perspective as well? Both?
I think mainly business. To be fair, like my lifestyle really hasn't changed much since being here. Like I still have my same routine. Like I'm very easy pleased. I just need to train, have good food, have good people around me, and I'm fine.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's more the energy. Like I love the fact that everyone you meet is on a mission to become better. They're growth minded. They all have maybe their own business going on, but at the same time, they, really value just like experiences in life. It's such good energy that you don't find elsewhere, I think.
I agree. Yeah. I think like there's a bit of a stigma around Dubai, isn't there? Like people do think it's just like real like influencer place, but there is that, of course. But at the same time, like, I think it actually, like you just said there, it's such a like growth orientated place that if you get around the right people, like you can genuinely hit some like huge levels out here. Like I think I'll probably be, I don't know, like here for at least another five years. The UK's not in the best places at the moment anyway.
No, unfortunately.
I don't know, but yeah, I'll probably see, to be honest. I still don't know 100% what the plan will be for this summer, but anyway.
Something else that I feel people don't really understand is like when they start their fitness journey, they think, oh, I have to have this like balance. How do you define balance?
Yeah. I think that balance is not realistic, especially at the start. I think that balance can start to come into play a lot more that when you get to where you want to be, but it's like anything. If we want something to move fast and we want to get to a good position, then I think that you need to prioritize rather than balance. So people try and, balance this incredible social life and their work life and then, try and get in good shape as well. And nothing really moves forward because we're trying to spin all these different plates. Whereas if you just have a singular focus on, really making the most out of getting in shape and like following something for 12 weeks, then you're going to get a huge result from that. And it doesn't mean that like other areas of your life have to be put on hold. I'm not saying like don't spend time with your family or, don't go out with your friends, but if you're trying to like enjoy all these things to the absolute max, you're never going to be able to do that. So I think it's good to just maybe like have a couple of big priorities in your life, whether like one is work, one is your physique. You're going to see things move a lot faster. But I think that like when you do get to a position of being in good shape and, like we've already spoken about, you've gone through a little bit of a reverse diet and the calories and stuff are a little bit higher, you can achieve real balance. I do believe that you can do that. I think that you can start to socialize more. You can, not track food and things like that and get away with it. But I definitely think there's graft that needs to be put in to begin with. Like people think that sometimes, getting in shape is quite easy, especially if you're starting to a coach, like, it's going to be easy. It's not. Like we can make your life as kind of straightforward as possible, but there's still going to be an element of sacrifice and suffering at times to get to where you want to get to. And goal dependent is again, but like if people want to really push themselves, like you're not going to do that without sacrifice. So I think balance to begin with isn't particularly realistic for a lot of people. But I think over time you will start to become more balanced. And I suppose it's like going to come down to as well as like how quick do you actually want the end result? So like I've got some clients that are like happy to maybe spend 6 months or like even like 12 months for dieting because they know that maybe some weeks they'll be a little bit off plan and they maybe they're not going to make the progress quick as what they would have if they just literally went all in for 3 months. And I've got some clients that will do that and they'll get to a position a lot faster. So I won't say there's a right or a wrong, but I know the way that I want to do something is I want to do something with speed and efficiency. And like, I think that like, if you want to do it that way, then you're going to have to make sacrifices in other areas of your life. So difficult to sort of say what's right for someone. But I think, you need to understand that there is going to be an element of sacrifice involved.
Yeah. I think it's like knowing when to push and pull, right?
Yeah.
In life, it's like in all areas of life, you're going to have phases and times where you really need to push one area and you pull back a little bit on other areas. It doesn't mean you completely remove those areas.
Yeah.
But you kind of pull back a little bit. So maybe that's, if you
It's just compromising. Like you just have to like understand like how are you going to approach your night out? How are you going to approach your social events? And a lot of it's planning. Like I think that if you actually plan and really sit down and think, right, like what am I doing this weekend? Like, what is it I can have? Like, what's a realistic and a good, sensible option that's not going to see me sitting there eating a salad if I don't want to eat a salad? But like, is there something I can have which isn't going to like literally completely screw the weekend up? Because I think a lot of people just walk into a weekend and they don't have a plan and they just end up like, messing things up. And that's the issue. Like if you plan ahead, you can often kind of like get around some of these social events and stuff without it actually being a huge sacrifice. So I think that that's something that people need to focus on a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. And I think sacrifice, the word sacrifice has a very negative connotation to it. It's almost like actually when we look at life, like if you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else, right? So there's always going to be something that you're sacrificing. So it's either you're sacrificing your progress for this week, and if you're okay with that, that's cool. Yeah. And you're going to go towards having a few more drinks on the weekend. Cool. If that's good with you, go for it. But then if you sacrifice the drinks, well, then you're moving forwards towards your physique goals, right? Yeah, there's always going to be something that you're saying no to if you say yes to something else.
Perspective, definitely. Yeah. I think that's the thing. Like people think that sometimes as well that that they have to be losing weight every single week and they can't have a break. Like often I get clients that I literally had a check-in with a client today, and like he said that he's got his like son's birthday and he's got like a family barbecue and all these things going on and stuff. So I literally just said to him, like, what do you want the outcome of this weekend to be? Like, what do you want the outcome? Like, you've had really good progress. It's been a fantastic week. Like, do you want to carry that on and like lose the weight and, wake up Monday morning and feel amazing and maybe sacrifice the fact that it was your son's, party or whatever, and you didn't quite enjoy it to the maximum? Or do you want the outcome to be, you go all in, you enjoy the social event, you have beers with your friends and your family, you have a barbecue, have whatever you want, and just you have to just own the sacrifice on a Monday morning. Like if that means it set you back by 1 or 2 kilos and you've got to then work your ass off for a couple of weeks, is it worth that? So I think like people need to think about what do they want the outcome of the weekend to be, or like this event and stuff. And you can then start to really understand, because you don't need to be losing weight every single week. Like you don't need to be in a calorie deficit all the time. There can be periods where you can relax it a little bit depending on that. And again, it goes back to like whether you want to get to the end destination as quick as possible, or whether you're happy to like have a couple of weeks of, maybe like not quite making the progress that you'd have liked.
Yeah. Do you think that, what are your thoughts on discipline?
Discipline. Yeah, I think that motivation is something that's a load of bollocks. I think that like discipline is something that everyone's going to need to be able to get to where they want to get to, because you're never going to be motivated to do something all the time. Like again, I literally think the last podcast I filmed was pretty much on this. Like I'd probably say 50% of the time you're going to really want to work out. Like, and that's the same for me as well, especially at the moment. Like I don't want to work out all the time. I don't want to eat, really well all the time. Yeah. But if you rely on that to get to your goals, you're never going to move anything forward. Yeah. So I think that when it comes to discipline, like, you have to be really strong-willed, and like your willpower is something that grows over time. So the more that you use it, the more willpower that you build, and that mental discipline is going to be extremely important throughout your fitness journey. I think people need to realize that there is going to be times where they really don't want to do something. But if you only do things on those occasions, it's literally going to be worthless. And I think over time as well, the motivational side of things drops and you need to rely more on your discipline. But if you're breaking promises to yourself and you're, not doing things and stuff, it just always leads you down the same road, right? Like eventually you just kind of tell yourself it's okay not to do things, which is a bad place to be. Yeah.
So how would you tell someone, like, if they're in a place right now where they lack discipline, they lack willpower, motivation, all those things, right? How can they get started?
I think, again, this is going to come down to clarity. So like people lack motivation and maybe they lack discipline because they don't know what they're shooting for. Yeah. So like I'll speak to a guy and he'll be like, oh, I want abs, or like I want a 6-pack, or I want to look good on holiday. I'm like, okay, but do you know what that looks like? Like we need to find out how much weight to lose. Like how long is it going to take you to get there? Like what's the realistic weight loss each week? I think that like when you've got clarity on your goal and you actually can start to see it's mapped out and you've got this, this end date that you've set or that's been set to you by a coach, whatever, maybe it is a holiday, that creates motivation, discipline. Yeah. So like when right, you can predict to be in that position, it kind of just builds this like real kind of like disciplined mindset at the start. Whereas if you just set this like vanilla goal of like, I want to have a six pack, or I want big glutes. Like nothing's going to change because there's no like real plan in place for that. So really like the motivation, the discipline is going to build when you actually have something tangible that you're working towards. And then over time, like you're just naturally going to become more disciplined. And that's not to say you should get into like this sort of all or nothing mindset, but I do think that if you don't have a goal in place, nothing's ever going to really move forward. So like that's one thing that we'll do with all of our clients at the start, like literally just, and again, like with complete transparency as well, like we'll look at someone and think, right, you've got about 20 kilos to lose. Like realistically, if you want to have a six pack, we're going to have to lose 20 kilos. Probably going to take us about 20 weeks. And like, we can split that into maybe like 2 10-week blocks and just be realistic. But that's what's going to be more motivating to someone rather than, just literally saying that they want to lose some weight and not having an actual specific time frame to lose that. And then, you're not going to be disciplined or motivated, are you? Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, you're never going to be. So that's the key, I think. Is that the same with your clients?
Yeah, I think that, and also, discipline is like a muscle, right? It needs to be built. So I think having someone to support you there to be like, okay, I'm going to hold you accountable. So you start practicing that willpower, you start practicing that discipline. Once you start stacking those wins, it does become a lot easier, right? Because again, it's like this mindset shift where you're like, oh, I am that person. Like, I can do this. Because I think the biggest thing that stops a lot of people is that lack of self-belief again. It's like they tell themselves, but I'm not disciplined. I have no willpower. I have no motivation. Well, like, the more you feed yourself that, or the more, right, the more likely you're going to go towards a pizza and be like, well, I'm not disciplined anyway, so I'm just going to have the pizza. So again, I think it just always comes back down to that mindset, and then obviously building those wins one by one.
That's why people need accountability as well. I think that like, even if you have the best intent and you're the most like high performance person on the planet, like you still need accountability. Like we still need to be to have someone in our corner that's going to hold us accountable. And I think that's probably the biggest trait you get from a coach, like actually having someone that you've got to check in with every single week, that's going to call you out for your bullshit, that's going to give you a pat on the back if you're doing well. In your fitness journey, you're going to need that. You're going to need someone to make those decisions as well. Like often you can get very like emotionally attached with yourself, with your scale weight and stuff like that. And it's very difficult to make a decision in terms of like whether you should be changing something up as well. So I think that like the value of coaching is huge. And this is not me just sat here trying to sell people into my program, but I genuinely do think that like, if you want to get to a position, fastest and like, and actually have a good physique, and you need a coach. Like you need someone that's going to actually be in your corner to be able to get you to that position. Yeah.
I was actually, I was having this conversation with one of our clients last week, because I think the biggest barrier for a lot of people is like, oh, it costs us too much. It's too expensive. Things though, like there's such a big difference between like costs and expense, and like how much you're willing to pay. Cause like, I think it's a bigger cost if you spend years never reaching your goals, right?
Yeah, the cost of inaction is huge.
Yeah, or maybe you go for something cheaper. So you buy a cheaper guide, you don't get where you want to be, so then you buy another one. And then over the years, you've probably spent more than you would have spent on a coach, one-off, and then had, value coming back for years to come. Yeah,
it's crazy. I think that there is a big like difference in terms of coaching programs and costs and stuff. I'm still a big believer in terms of you get what you pay for. I think that there are some coaching programs that probably are very expensive, and it's not to sort of devalue them, but there is also some ones that potentially are a lot cheaper. But I think that if you get the right coaching program, that I always say to the clients that come and work at Fit Lab is that like, if you genuinely go all in here and you listen and you spend 6 months with us, like you probably won't need a coach again. You might want to work with us after 6 months. We have a lot of clients that do, and that's amazing. Like they enjoy the process, but if you want to leave after 6 months, I genuinely think you'll be in a position where you can look after this yourself. Like you will be able to, be on high food. You'll know how to maintain the body fat that you've got. You'll be able to maintain your progress. So yes, it's a 6 month investment, but after that, you might not ever need to invest in your health and fitness ever again. And like you say, otherwise every single year, this next like golden bullet that comes out, they're going to find something that looks cool. And actually like the accumulative cost over the 5-year period is huge. Farly outweighs like what they would have paid if they were to invest into the program in the day one.
Yeah. So it's like, it's more expensive, but actually costs you less.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's not even taken into account like the change in lifestyle as well, in terms of like the money that people are spending at the weekends on shit food and like, I don't know, like the drinks and stuff and all the other things, like pointless supplements as well. Like people spend money on like all these things that it adds up. So actually like having a coach can rectify a lot of these things as well, like saves you money. Yeah,
you're more accountable to where you spend your money in terms of food, right? You're no longer binging and buying all these snacks that you don't need.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And like we can obviously like tailor towards that as well in terms of, if someone has got a budget, then that's something that we can work towards.
Yeah. Cool. Amazing. Well, I've really enjoyed our discussion.
Yeah, me too.
I hope that it was obviously valuable for everyone listening here as well.
Yeah, it's been great to have you on. I think you've definitely given a lot of value today. So thank you for for being on my podcast. Hopefully it's been valuable for your listeners as well.
Yeah, amazing. So for my listeners, if they want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
So on Instagram, Chris_FitLab. That's probably the biggest platform that I'm on. I'm definitely starting to post on other platforms as well. Obviously, you can listen to my podcast, which is on here, but YouTube is on its way as well. Obviously, thanks to yourself with some of the recommendations and stuff.
Yeah.
But for the moment, it'll be my Instagram, which is the biggest. And how about yourself?
So my Instagram's cz.fit, and then YouTube's just my full name. So that's CHENYANGZHAO, because it's a bit hard to pronounce and spell. And for those on the YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in again. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next upload. Cool.
Thanks, guys.